Show with Trevor Noah presents Jordan Klepper Fingers the Midterm, America Unfollows Democracy. And it's all about the midterms. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
Good. That's a big title. Thank you for saying the whole. Actually, you actually added words, which I thought was impossible for a title that long. But you put Comedy Central's The Daily
That's
Show with
that's
Trevor
what your
Noah.
publicist sent to me. He said, that's the way I gotta read it, or he's leaving. I got that right away. First of all, you were on Morning Joe, and I was told this was an exclusive. You weren't talking to anybody. I can't believe you went on anyone but this show.
Was
So
I on morning? I don't know. I was stumbling around 30 Rock, and they were like, if you want to come in, talk about some stuff. So if that's what happened, I don't know who I'm talking to anymore. Dean, it's
this
just you and me.
can we just how
Solo here.
how funny and uncomfortable was it when Mika kept repeating "fingers the midterms" and goes like "fingers the midterms," and everyone's like, "Oh, whatever now." And what was that like on the set? Like, how did that feel?
They were lovely, but I think right before we went on, it did become clear. Oh shoot, this is the full name of the special, and I don't think Mika totally wanted to say that. There was some questions to producers. Can we say that? In fact, I was just told also I'm going to do a little more press in a couple other places, and I've just gotten back. Oh, we will not be saying the title on our show. So there, this becomes a larger question. Is it too tawdry? I mean, we're referencing something, but it's really about something more important.
Right.
It's the unfollowing of democracy. And Dean, this really gets to our point here.
It does.
People want to shut us up because we make a sex joke. But what comes after that sex joke is the collapse of democracy. They're fine with that. Oh,
Right.
collapse of democracy? Fine. Are you making a double entendre about some hand play? We can't have any of that.
Thank God Elon Musk's here to end all of that. And we can have freedom finally to say what we want until he blocks you, which he's blocked people. Not to, let's talk about your special, because folks, it's about the midterms. People are going to learn a lot. MSNBC recently did a focus group with voters, Trump voters. I think it was in Pennsylvania. This to me was more insightful. You went to 3 states. You went to Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Michigan. 3 battleground states. And you talk to people. I think it's a great special because it's funny, but you're getting people not like in this focus group setting. They're comfortable to be who they are without any pressure. And you're not editing it to make them look any different than they are. And they're proud. So let's go through state by state. Let's start with Pennsylvania. You kick it off at a Doug Mastriano rally. You call it your election denier tour. What did you find? Because that race is not that close, thankfully, but it is still concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the race. It was on the Capitol steps with Doug Mastriano, who I know way back from January 6th. We hung out on January 6th. I was covering it. He was having more fun. We were really curious to see if that was a disqualifier for somebody like Doug Mastriano. Turns out not the case. Many of the people we ran into that day were there at January 6th. Didn't see anything wrong with January 6th. But the thing that sort of surprised us most was that it was a bust. It should have been a big rally. There was talk of it being a big rally. It was probably 75 people. And I think that was the first time we went to a MAGA rally without Trump actually there. And it felt a little bargain basement. It made us rethink a little bit about what the popularity of MAGA without Trump looks like. And in Pennsylvania, it doesn't seem like Mastriano can carry that torch.
But of course, the reason was it was suppressed by Facebook, as we learned when you interviewed people. Could you share a little about that theory? Because it really comes down, there's always an excuse for failure. That's at its essence what's going on. It's an excuse for failure. It's never us. We didn't fail. We didn't lose the election. Something else. So share a little bit about that exchange, because I think that makes that bigger point.
Well, I think there's always an excuse for failure. There's an inability to accept loss. When you have a nation of sore losers, you have democracy in peril. When we asked, hey, there's a chance Doug Mastriano loses this election, partially because there doesn't appear to be much of a turnout for him, folks went to, well, Facebook is suppressing the turnout. And then I asked the man how he got his information to be here that day. The answer was Facebook. That was how we got the information to be there that day. But it was yet again, that's the bad guy. We had other conversations with people there, and when you talk about 2020, the big go-to for people as to why they don't believe Joe Biden could have won is because of turnouts. Turnout.
Right.
I know in my gut that Donald Trump won because I look around me and everybody was a Trump fan, and I looked at Biden rallies and there weren't that many people. And then when you would confront them with the idea of, if that's your logic, there's clearly not a lot of people here today. Can't you see Doug Mastriano losing? People refuse to even consider that as a possibility.
The more siloed we get, the more you can see that actually in people's mind being reasonable. Like for us as the outsiders, you're like, your metric can't be during a pandemic. He didn't have big rallies. But if all you see on social media, all your friends, everyone you hang out with is Trump, 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 and he loses, you go like, there's no Biden people. This is ridiculous. You actually believe it on some level.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we are in those bubbles. You're like, everybody's watching White Lotus, right? Everybody watches White Lotus. Then you go to the middle of the country, go to a diner, you're like, you want to talk White Lotus? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So
Right.
we have an inability to think beyond our own biases and our own bubbles. And you see that consistently at these Trump rallies. But there's also something that you're always going to be at a loss with a Democratic candidate. Most of the time you'll be at that loss, where the point is made, Trump fans like to wear the Trump gear. I know a lot of Democrats in New York who voted for Biden. I'm sure of it, who never bought any Biden merch. Biden was their fourth favorite person to run for office, and I'm yet 100% sure of the thousands of people who voted for him here without having to show the world that they voted for him. But when you make politics a carnival show or a college football event, well, then you base your winning and your numbers on who wears the colors.
So then, and I'm talking with Jordan Klepper about his new special airing tonight, Halloween, 11:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, November 1st. I'm sorry, November 1st. It's airing November 1st.
Tonight's Halloween. Let people have their fun tonight, Dean.
Let the other things that are scary. I'm sorry about that. It's November 1st, tomorrow. So then you went to Michigan, which is your home state. You talked to people. In that one, you even had someone spew some anti-Semitism. Was that an outlier, or did you hear other kind of bigotry like that in some of the interviews?
I will say the anti-Semitism was a bit of an outlier there. I'm not saying it wasn't underneath some certain other things, but that got to this global cabal conspiracy revolving around the Rothschilds and a lot of anti-Semitism that was living underneath. There was, I think we were surprised by the amount of farther right, for lack of a better term, batshit POVs. Back in my home state, there was another man who I would say, actually, let me paint you a picture. The last 3 interviews we did was a woman who came over wearing a Bud Light seltzer hat, who started to go into an anti-Jewish tirade, who was then we then asked a man who talked about Nancy Pelosi being a literal vampire who drank baby blood, and we were interrupted by Mike Lindell, who walked by, who came up and wanted to yell at us for 10 straight minutes. And then we stopped. We were like, I think we have it. We're done today. And this is not us attempting to fish for weirdness. This is what standing on that corner is, with these wild, extreme perspectives.
The whole drinking the baby blood thing, is that, like, I don't understand it. Is that like a taste great, less filling type of thing? Is there supposed to be like some benefit to it that I'm missing? Like, I truly don't understand it.
If you're drinking blood, it should be baby blood. So I think that checks out.
So like if you're going to do a commercial, like, don't drink blood, but if you're going to drink blood, make it baby's blood. And Jordan Klepper for baby blood. Like, I can see the commercial.
I'm only for baby's blood once we've normalized the idea of drinking blood. Once that's normalized, well, then, yeah, you can be picky.
So you're on record against blood, but if you're going to make it blood, folks, make it.
It's going to be blood. Make it baby's blood.
So then you went to Arizona, which you said was the worst of the 3. And I understand why. The polls there show, as of this morning, Carrie Lake, the queen of election denying for governor, is still up by a couple of points. The Secretary of State nominee for the Republicans, Mark Fincham, an Oath Keeper. So then you went and talked to the Oath Keepers there. I find it remarkable, the Oath Keepers, whose leaders are literally on trial, as we stated here, Stuart Rhodes and others in D.C. for seditious conspiracy to violently overthrow the government. And like their chapters just operating like in a community center recreation room. I'm like, I don't get this.
I was surprised by that as well. I will say that local chapter of the Oath Keepers, they were very open to us. We reached out to them. They made a point of saying we are not affiliated with Stuart Rhodes. We are separate from them. We don't support what he did. But we are very focused on protecting the ballot boxes as they see it. And we ran into a lot of, like, again, to give them credit for their visibility. I think that's sort of what a lot of these, or not a lot of these, some of these militias, movements, paramilitary groups want to do, is to be seen as a legitimate citizenry force. So they open up their doors. They want the media to come in. But we kept running into this frustrating point, which is They are there staking out these ballot boxes in the middle of the night. They are armed. There was a coming from New York, coming from even Michigan. The idea of being armed 75 feet away from a ballot box, taking photos of people, is in and of itself intimidation from my point of view. They very much do not see that as the case. They see being armed as just kind of regular day-to-day Arizona living, and hanging out in a car is just them being good citizens. But you're seeing that happen now. You're seeing videos, and it's muddying this water. At the very least, it's putting doubt for people in the results that are going to happen in the next few days. And I think that's where you see that just across the board. People are already distrusting the results in the future.
It was a very interesting conversation you had with that couple outside of the ballot box in Arizona, which the arm thing I can get because they're an open carry state, right? So to them, we go everywhere open carry. So I'm like, okay, I can try to get in that mindset. What was weird was that they're wearing the Oath Keepers hat and T-shirt, and they go, "We're not here in our capacity with the Oath Keepers." I'm like, but you're wearing the uniform. Like, what, am I missing something? Like, why don't they own it? Why don't they go, "We are our capacity"? I don't know why they were denying the reality of that. I don't get it. Was there something deeper that I was missing?
I mean, they're very clear that they were Oath Keepers.
Right.
Going out. They're very proud of being Oath Keepers. They're not hiding that they are Oath Keepers. They're doing media appearances as Oath Keepers. And there are people who are complaining they're Oath Keepers outside our ballot boxes. And then they're surprised. They're like, why are people upset that Oath Keepers are here? It's like, guys, because there's Oath Keepers here.
It is a worrisome thing. And then to make it even slightly more worrisome, you sat down with Congressman Adam Kinzinger, who's a Republican on the January 6th committee. And in a calm conversation, he talked about civil war and that it could be coming. Share a little bit about that, because Mike, when a congressman says that, who's a military veteran, I was like, I think maybe we should take pause here and really listen to what's going on.
I think we should. I mean, Kinzinger didn't mince words.
Yeah.
And he even said that people want to shy away from that as a conversation, but that we need to start engaging with it. That I think something we talk about in the special, and Kinzinger talked a little bit about, is sort of, I think, a lack of imagination when Americans think about what civil war could look like. And it could like more localized strife and attacks. You know, he referenced Northern Ireland, the Troubles. And those are types of attacks that are already are festering across the nation. And it's what happens when you don't have a shared reality, and two,
Right.
when there is a distrust in basic institutions. And we're very much there, and Kinzinger's on the front lines trying to actually stand up and adjudicate some pretty basic crimes that most of the world have seen with their own eyes, and that has pushed him out of a party. I think he understands that firsthand.
You know, his analogy to Northern Ireland made me think, like, are the Democrats the Catholics, or are we the Protestants? Like, who? And I'm Muslim. Like, where do I end up in the whole Northern Ireland thing? Am I even allowed? Like, I'm like, it's Protestant and Catholic. I'm like, hey, I'm Muslim. Do I get to pick a team? Like, maybe they draft me. They're like, okay, you come with us. I really don't know how it played out.
Because you're either Christian or atheist. You're a Christian God, or God is dead, I think, is the only two sides of the upcoming Civil War.
There was something in there, too, going back to Michigan, where you talked to a Lions fan. And what Jordan does great, and the special has just been moved. It's now November 1st. It was going to be tonight, but we moved it to November 1st.
I know. Now we've disappointed people. Everybody was so excited, Dean.
I'm sorry. I think my intro, I did make a mistake and say it was tonight, and I'm glad you corrected me. It's November 1st, 11:30 p.m. But no, when you went to Michigan, and I think you did this some other place, but this guy was with a Lions fan, and you're from Michigan, and he accepted that if his team loses, the Giants, the Lions, you lose, you regroup and come better. But when it came to the 2020 election, this denialism runs so deep. And I mean, is it unreachable, these people? Is that your sense? Because they seem nice people. They actually, honestly, some of them, not the extremists, some of them seem like normal, nice people you could talk to.
100%. Honestly, that guy, I love talking to that man. And he articulated it. He said that as a Lions fan, they're heartbreaking. You care about them, you love them, they get so close, and then they lose, and you have to accept it and move on to fight again. He articulates this. And then when I ask him about, like, you have to move on, he continued to talk about, like, you can't identify with them, otherwise that says that you lost. And then you admitting that you lost is in and of itself the most difficult thing you can do. And I think that's the whole game. Why is this such a problem? Is because it's not the Republican Party is the party that I vote for, but I go and do something else. It's Trumpism. It's MAGAism. And so it's just a win-loss game. And if they lose in any sense, then you lose and you have to accept a loss. And now we've given all of these blueprints in ways that you're like, what if you don't have to accept loss? What if you never have to engage with the troublesome ideas behind this? Then you never have to feel like you are in the minority with your point of view, or need to feel or need to question if your rhetoric is having negative implications. You don't ever have to accept accountability. And I think he walked us right through that.
I think the point, again, this is such an insightful point. And again, it takes comedy. Let's be blunt. Come on, these journalists, blah, blah, blah. This point, though, because I wrote that down, that the guy's own identity was tied to Trump's win or loss. And that's something I don't think on the left people understand. It is far deeper. Because I'll be like, because people analogize it to sports. I'm a Met fan. I've been used to pain forever. I'm a Giant fan. There are good times and bad, but it's not my self-identity, even though I love the Giants. They're my favorite team in all of sports. For these people, somehow their own identity became intertwined in Donald Trump. And so their vision, their self, they've lost, and they don't want to accept losing. And I don't think I've ever seen that in politics. I honestly can't think of a time when I've seen this.
Yeah. Well, it's a magic trick that he pulled. He's created an identity for all of these people, an identity around victory and what have you. He's also divided the idea of governing and politics. And so, the right has always been very good at this, and the politicking of it all. They put more effort into that than the actual governing. But you have a disaffected electorate who actually doesn't even connect it's not even a desire, an expectation of government working for them. And if that is the case, then all the conversation around governing, that's just what you use to get to the ultimate thing you care about, which is a win. It's just the politics of it all. And so you go to these rallies, and we might talk about healthcare or inflation or what have you, but most of these people don't actually care about that. That's just the language we're using to get us to the ultimate victory, which is just a Pyrrhic victory. And that's what's so mind-boggling, where you're like, but what about these things that you do which could affect your life? They could affect democracy. They have really tangible effects on people day in and day out, including you. Do you want to engage with that? And they're like, no, I'm just engaging with the one horse race I care about, and that's whether I'm a loser or a winner. And I will say whatever I can to be that winner.
And I think another point you make there is something I've talked about on the show. When I have Democrats call in and say, these Republicans are voting against their interests. And I always stop them. I go, no, they're voting exactly with their interest. We don't understand their interest. So when you lay it out like that, it makes more sense to people. It's not about, vote Democrat and maybe you'll get more child health insurance benefits, or you might get more Medicaid or Medicare benefit. That's not what moves them. What moves them is, in this case, it's Trump winning, so they win, and they feel good about themselves. And if he loses, it reflects on them. It's much deeper than that. So last couple of things. First of all, does Elon Musk buying Twitter, literally spewing misinformation last night, does that make it harder? I mean, your trip out there in a way is to show us people not accepting facts. So we can't agree on a set of facts. So how do you ever come together on issues? Does Elon Musk himself personally spewing misinformation about the Pelosi attack and what that could lead to in the future make it harder for us to actually come together ever as a nation?
Dear Lord, yes. Elon Musk sending that out to 111 million people. I already see myself having the conversation a week and a half from now, because that's all you need. What happened with Paul Pelosi is frightening. And to engage with the idea of, is our rhetoric and the way we talk about people, is this actually hurting somebody? That is a hard conversation to have. And the one thing Americans don't want to have is hard conversations. So if you give them some sort of bullshit lifeline that you can put in front of this hard conversation, then you don't have to ever have the hard conversation. And out comes the richest man on the planet, and he throws bullshit out there. And guess what? It's the lifeline that everybody can grab. And now instead of having the hard conversation of like, there is somebody getting hit with a hammer because of the rhetoric around this person that we're spewing right now. And if you can say, well, but I heard this other thing, well, then we never have to have that conversation. And that's the conversation I'm going to be having weeks from now. It's what happened after January 6th. What happened after every moment of reckoning is the misinformation space is filled with escape hatches for real conversations.